thank you all for coming out to SaintCon, to hear everyone, to hear me. If you're here, you're either just here to have lunch, which is great, or you love subreddits, or you happen to know me personally, which is not at all pressure. So started out talking about some subreddits for the Utah Saint community, and as we're getting that ready, I quickly turned into something more because talking about subreddits does not fill 30 minutes of conversation or presentation. So this turned into a way to help encourage Utah security members, Utah Saint members, the security community to get out, leave your shell, leave your bubble, get out there with the rest of Utah. So kind of a motivational type speech. I'm not a professional motivational speaker, but I do believe in what I say. So hopefully this can give you some ideas to help get involved elsewhere. Briefly myself, I've been online since the 90s. The internet is easily, an integral part of my life, just like many of y'all. Went to SaintCon in 2013, had a blast, absolute great time. And since then I've been able to present at every year. Last year I talked about the importance of HTTPS, why it should be the default for all websites. To continue that work, I made a couple websites, Secure Utah and UtahWatch.org, to help advocate for and track HTTPS in Utah. There hasn't been a large adoption, a lot of work to do, just like with many other security controls and aspects, but it's something I care about, and my plan now is to continue on being a security and privacy advocate. So that's my background and where I'm coming from. So I'll talk a bit about the subreddits just to introduce those, and then go on to opportunities for everyone else to get involved here in Utah. Honestly, has anyone never been to Reddit at all? Anyone at all? One guy. Okay. You are awesome because you've resisted the urge to get lost in time-wasting stuff. Easily get sucked in. So it's not much to it. I mean, you share links and text, you can comment on it, discuss on it. It allows for kind of a community discussion. Anyone can make an account. You can make your own subforum. They're called subreddits. Subreddits have moderators. In this case, it's me and a few other people in the Utah Saint group, and they can be styled with CSS. Customize them how you like. So that's the basic gist of Reddit. And so a couple of years ago, I went to SaintCon. I looked on Reddit. There was no subreddits for Utah Saint or SaintCon community. I registered them, and Troy Jessup, head of Utah Saint, got in touch with me. He said, "Hey, are you doing something with these?" And I said, "Sure, I'll make them look nice. We'll get them going up in time for SaintCon." And so r/SaintCon is how you denote subreddits. Just a way to share, continue on what you learned here at the con. Share your notes, keep in touch with people you met, provide links to YouTube videos and the materials that are shared there. And hopefully, serve as a way for someone coming next year saying, "Hey, what happened last year? Oh, all this cool stuff, all this stuff I want to learn. Now I'm going to go next year." The way it's set up is that you have to be an approved user, to make a post. Anyone can comment. This is a way to kind of control some of the content on there, keep it focused on SaintCon. If you can see that, if you haven't been, I mean, once you're there, you're obviously there. You're in the SaintCon area. If you have questions about it, post up. Read the background and add to the discussion thread. So if you've used Reddit for a while, it's familiar. If you're new to it, just a way to comment and share about what you've learned here at SaintCon. For Utah Saint, who here is members of Utah Saint? Oh, that's like half. That's awesome. So in the past few years, it's kind of been an email discussion list, really informal. I'm not a committee member, but I am an enthusiastic member, and they're looking for ways to expand the interaction. And this subreddit will hopefully be one way it's hard to have long discussions over email lists. Half people don't want to hear it, some miss it. You can't respond to something a week ago because it's already passed by. So the subreddit allows you to continue that conversation about technical videos, presentations. Keep your learning up. I discover something now and someone else 6 months hasn't seen it. They can go back and find something cool that's relevant to them. It's private, meaning you have to be approved to view it, to comment and submit. all you have to do is just be a member of Utah Saint. It's nothing super secret. There's no like exploits released. It's not a way to snark on non-technical folk. Just to have our own little community to share our technical knowledge. A couple screenshots. It's got the Utah Saint logo. We talked about having things like a job thread or ways to get involved in the community. You see a couple examples. I mean, just a few threads I've made about DNS security. There's a video I've linked to from one of the NSA chiefs talking about how to defend from nation state hackers. There's so much content being produced in the security world, so many videos and conferences and academic papers. It's easy to miss stuff and lose stuff, you know, that's super relevant or interesting to your work. And so on the right, you'll see some options to go back and search for topics search for threads on a certain topic, like red teaming or videos and papers. When you post something, you can tag it with a certain flair so that, you know, a year from now when there's 100-something posts, you want to go back and find those 5 things on blue teaming. It's kind of easy to search back and find the content you want. So that's the easy part. The Reddit stuff, subreddits are pretty straightforward. If you have questions, you want access, come talk to me, email the Utah Saint group. It's pretty easy to get in there. So talking about opportunities in Utah, to give some background, I guess it's hard to come up here on a technical conference and talk about yourself. So I don't want the focus to be on me, but I want to give some context to what I'm talking about. In the 50s, there was this radio program called This I Believe. And it took notable people from the time and they gave like a 3 to 5 minute statement on the things that motivate them, how they live their life, what's important, kind of the tenets that they believe in. Very interesting stuff that they have a book that produced about it. But for me in the technical world, this is kind of what drives me. Cybersecurity is equal to public safety. I mean, anyone who's been paying attention to the Internet of Things that should not be connected to the Internet, it's really easy for someone in a remote location to come and physically mess with our lives. And so the fact that hospitals and financial markets and stoplights and list goes on, all these things that are connected, that when they go down, cause annoyance and disruption and maybe chaos. I mean, this is public safety is now dependent on the security of our networks and our computer systems. So it's a change from cybersecurity is to me, it was a change that occurred to me over the past year. You go from, oh, I just configured it correctly, I hit the right switches, choose the right options, install the right software, and I'm secure. Security isn't about the right choices, it's about safety, making something safe when operated, not just safe when operated with the right switches on. A good example is the auto industry, how it went from these cars that were big engines in the 40s and 50s, and they drive well, to they went to starting including crumple zones and seat belts and all this stuff that's just there, that's by design safe to keep the users, to keep the driver safe when it's used. And so that's the trend that I see, is that cybersecurity is going to the safety route, make things safe by design instead of just something that you enable later on. Encryption should be the default. Privacy should be protected, both hot topics. And the words should and requires are highlighted or bolded. There's an RFC, early one, that kind of defines some of the terms they use. Required and must, meaning this definitely is an absolute requirement. Should or recommended, when those words are used in these RFCs, there may exist valid reasons in particular circumstances to ignore an item, but the full implications must be understood and carefully weighed when choosing a correct course, a different course. So for encryption and privacy, you should prefer them. That should be the default, but it's a difficult subject, and there's nuances, and there's times we might not want those, and they should be carefully considered. InfoSec requires human diversity. This is, by diversity, I don't mean like, it's not just a buzzword. By diversity, I mean a mix of gender, race, experience, and backgrounds. I mean, security is not something that, I don't know how else to say this, a bunch of white guys who've been online 10 years is going to solve. It's not going to translate to the rest of the world and all the myriad of problems we face that are coming down the pipeline in the next in 10, 20 years. A great example of this is the BYU cyber defense team, collegiate defense team that Dr. Rose spoke about a couple days ago. 8 members of the team, 4 guys, 4 girls, and they placed second. Another example, Alex Stamos, the CISO of Facebook, spoke last year on the moral imperatives of application security and some of the challenges he faces as his position as head of Facebook, which has its global reach, about authentication. How do you authenticate users who don't have an experience of logging into a keyboard and a screen with a username and password that so much of us have grown up with? When so many people's experience in so much of the world, their first experience online is a small mobile phone. How do you authenticate them and get them used to taking care of their account and the security of their information when they don't have the years of knowledge and experience that so many of us have? So the point is, it's going to take people with all kinds of experiences to face and deal with these problems and think about them in new ways. We need, lawyers that can parse code and understand how networks work in order to prosecute cases correctly. Hospitals that can evaluate their own hardware security. Government employees that can make sure the data they collect and take care of is the same data they had last week as they had last year. And the list goes on. Librarians that can be aware of privacy leaks before they happen. Small businesses that can focus on businessing, not, do I have to have a full-time security guy just to run my business? A bit about Utah. Some interesting stuff I came across. This is most recent information, Bureau of Labor Statistics from May of last year. 1.3 million people in Utah that are employed. They're being paid, working part-time or full-time. 40,000 are IT jobs. Out of those, 360 are InfoSec analysts. How many here are not information security analysts in your day job? Like, that's not your title. And that's wonderful, that's great, that's exactly what we need. And with 700 people here at SaintCon, there's no way that every InfoSec analyst in Utah is here. And that's perfect, that's great, but the question to me is, who else is out there in Utah that could be here, that should be here, that needs this association and this knowledge of how to secure our systems? If you haven't been paying attention, the tech scene on Utah is on fire. We have a great workforce. Our universities are pumping out, 20, 40,000 people a year with degrees. Startups are everywhere. Technology use in government has been receiving awards for the past 10 years. Tech sector is booming. I mean, I could easily pick 5 other examples of how well tech is doing in Utah, and not just internet tech, but science, manufacturing, engineering, the whole range of STEM type companies. And they all have computers that are connected online. They all have intellectual property needs protecting. All these companies that depend on technology and the internet in some way all need protecting. So again, there's this huge opportunity and to me, I guess, a demand for cybersecurity to be forefront in Utah. We have focused all this money on business development and economic development. I think cybersecurity should be right up there as a priority for the government and for the business community to focus on. So these are just questions to think about. I know what I want to do. I know what I believe in. I know I come to SaintCon every year, and it's great. So if you're new or you're new to security, I guess think about these. Why are you here? What motivates you to come and spend the money, spend the time, spend 4 days geeking out and learning about stuff? Why do you care about security? Why is this important to you? You learn new things. You learn how to monitor networks and hack and get into stuff. So to much of the world, we are wizards. We can do stuff that people don't understand. How do you get that computer to work? How do you get that data out? How are you going to use this new information in your life? What are you going to do to help improve security in Utah? And again, this goes back to why I'm presented last year and this year, is that I saw people going to conferences, people speaking, and then once the conference is over, they go back to their jobs, and that we don't kind of hear from each other or interact much until the next year. There are some great technical conferences and groups to get involved in. B-Sides is a 2-day conference in the spring of February or March. Open West is a big conference every summer. focused around open source development, and DC 801 is a hackerspace in Salt Lake. UtahSec is kind of an umbrella group for all the security-related organizations here in Utah. There's the website meetup.com. There's lots of meetups in Utah, Salt Lake, Ogden, Provo, and beyond, focused on things like Python or DevOps or crypto or Java, whatever else. And there's all these groups that are IT focused that could use some security input awareness from people who can speak their language. A great one is called Girl Develop It. They're a meetup group focused around giving a space for women to come together who are coders and programmers and developers to share experiences, to work on projects. They have a couple of meetups in Salt Lake and Provo twice a month. And it's not just women, you can call it women and their allies. I've been to a few times. They're great. You can give little presentations. They're a group that's underrepresented in technology, especially in security. And they're hungry to be involved. They're hungry to learn. And it's a group a demographic that we sorely need. The technical opportunities are easy to find out. The non-technical ones, I think, are much more crucial, also much more harder. Jeremy Cox a couple of days ago talked about the political process, how we can get involved, how we should lend our technical knowledge and input into the bills that are coming down the pipeline, talking to our representatives. Lawyers, law firms. So this first thing, government lawyers don't understand the internet. That's a problem. That's a link to recent article from the Washington Post from a week or so ago. Kind of going through how we have lawyers that are prosecuting and law firms that are defending people, and they don't always understand the technology, how networks work and how code works, and what the implications are of sending malware to someone's computer to pull an IP address off of it. Is that a search or not? Is it there's a couple of big cases going on right now that I'll get to in a second, but we don't have, and it kind of reflects what the problem with politicians. We don't have people who administer and deal with the law when they don't understand the technology it's dealing with. You have injustice happening. So the Utah State Bar, great organization. They have a group called the Cyber Law Section, lawyers that focus on cybersecurity and technology. They're just starting to gear up. A great opportunity to go talk to them. There's a group called Legal Hackers, started back in New York, but these are lawyers essentially who are into coding and technology. There's no Utah chapter. There really should be one. As part of my work on HTTPS, I went to look at the law firms about 300 different websites in Utah. My website goes out and contacts them, tries to connect the website, and then kind of scores the connection. They offer HTTPS or not. What's the strength of that connection? Are they doing it well? 300 different websites across a variety of industries, and law firms are one of the worst performing for their websites. And it may seem something minor, your website's not over HTTPS. Well, we don't really serve much content, but talking about HTTPS, I can go off for an hour. But it's in a way, it's kind of reflective of they're not current with technology and security practices. So back to the article. I want to quote a couple lines from the article. Both federal prosecutors and attorneys who represent agencies in court are bungling lawsuits across the country because they don't understand what they're talking about. Too few lawyers have the skill set or the specialized knowledge to make sense of code, networks, and the people that use them, and too few law schools are telling them what they need to know. So there's been a big, if you follow the legal tech world at all, it's been an interesting case over the past year. There was a website on the dark web, for lack of a better term. You can only access it over Tor. It was called Playpen. It was a child pornography site. The FBI gained control of it, the servers there, and for, I don't know how long, a week or so, they served up some code that was sent to visitors' computers, and the code would reveal that person's IP address, their real IP address. And so the FBI did this, and they collected a bunch of information, and slowly there's been cases rolling out over the past several months, not just in the US, but elsewhere in the world, of visitors to that site. And it's been interesting from the fact that you had a debate of, well, is revealing someone's IP address, is that a Fourth Amendment search? Is it an invasion of privacy? Do you have an expectation of privacy when you use Tor? Does a judge in Virginia have the ability to issue a warrant for a website where you have visitors from all across the US? I mean, these sticky legal questions that require a combination of legal knowledge and technical knowledge of how the code works and whether it's executed on that person's computer and how it's delivered. And there's been a range of decisions of judges who in some cases they've said, this warrant is not valid. And in some cases they've said, well, this search is valid because you don't have an expectation of privacy on Tor, which is marketed as a anonymizing software. So it's just one example, and it's a great article. It talks about some of the law firms that are law schools that are trying to teach technology and the changes, and trying to teach lawyers to be more, to understand technology better. I mentioned the startups and businesses here in Utah. If you haven't seen the websites, Beehive Startups, Silicon Slopes, both focused on the startup technology scene. Utah Tech Council is a professional advocacy group for businesses. If you're a tech company, you work at one, think about being a member, getting your voice heard, because they have a lot of interaction with legislatures and people up on the Hill. Journalists, another industry that really needs data protection, really needs security. All these links here are links to organizations, some cases international organizations, that talk about, when you're traveling, you're doing your work, here's how you protect your devices, here's how you protect your contacts, here's how you protect yourself so that you can do your work and get back home safely and your contacts aren't arrested because of you contacted them in an insecure way. So if journalism is your thing, if you love teaching about security, there's ample opportunity to go out and interact with the journalist community and the media community here in Utah. And the cool thing is some of these guides that can actually double as advice for traveling executives. When you have executives that go to Europe, to China, you've got to protect their devices, you've got to protect their information. So this would be a good starting point to get a handle on that. Libraries they love privacy, they love teaching people. The American Library Association has a privacy week in May. I've contacted a few libraries here in Utah. They're open to having people come in and teach classes. There's an organization called the Library Freedom Project where the members go around giving lessons to librarians about security, about data privacy, how to run a Tor exit node. So again, if you care about this kind of stuff, libraries are a great way to get started. They serve the community. They care about privacy very much. So it's a good way to go out and help others and really have a difference and something concrete. Last example that often get overlooked, and you might not think they have a strong need for security, but domestic abuse services, women's shelters, homeless services, they serve a very vulnerable population. Oh, let me go back. So a couple of things to talk about. If you do say, hey, I want to help my local women's services shelter, you can't just walk in the door and say, hey, I'm here to help. I mean, they care very much about their clients' safety and privacy. So if you want to go this route, you've got to go through like an established route, or you can't just be a guy off the street saying, hey, I want to help you with security, because many guys on the street are suspect to them for very good reason. But they're a group that could use a lot of help. And there's an article that I'll show a couple examples from. It was from 2 years ago, but I mean, it's still relevant. 85%, I think these are shelters in California that the reporter surveyed. Shelters are working directly with victims who abuse are tracking via GPS. Through our phones, it's easy to install an app that tracks and reports back your location to family members. There's companies that sell software we would classify it as spyware. They market it as, keep track of your devices wherever they are, but they're used by people to spy on family members and others. Nearly half the shelters had a policy against using Facebook because they leak your location. Counselors in Minnesota had to call police when an abuser found out where the safe house was. He tracked his wife using GPS. A woman thought her phone was off, but it turned out her was still feeding data out. I mean, how many people who use phones know how to secure them so no data leaks out, so nothing's getting back to anyone? I mean, I have challenges with that. I'm sure most of us would. The last line, a few shelters had abusers gave iPhones to their children as a gift in order to track them to the mom. My own little bit of research on this has shown that it's a serious need for women to go in. They need to, and some shelters I've read about, they have, during their intake session, they'll go through and clear out someone's phone, or move the SIM card to a new clean phone, or give someone a new phone entirely just so they can't be tracked. So if you're against surveillance, if you're pro-privacy, I mean, it's great fun to rail against the NSA and the governments, but if you really care about it, I mean, this is the type of population that is people who are threatened by tracking every day, who, where if they're found, it results in horrible things happening to them. So I don't have much beyond this. I can't say, this shelter needs specific help in Utah, but it's a population where if you care about securing people and preventing tracking and want to do some real good, it's an opportunity to go out and assist them with their intake methods and making sure their clients are safe and can't be tracked. So that's mostly it. I mean, like I said, the subreddit is great and cool. UtahSAINT is awesome. I love SaintCon. I'll be here next year and the year after that. But I guess this past year, my eyes have opened up lots of opportunities for us to go out, and we have this knowledge, we have this desire. How else can we share that in Utah and be involved? And there's lots of ways to do it. There's lots more opportunities to go. I'm sure you can find them anywhere. This is kind of the tip of the iceberg. But one thing I like about SaintCon is that anyone can submit and talk. I'm one of the anyone. I've never given a presentation before 2 years ago, and still come out here today. I've done it a few times, and it's still nerve-wracking and hard to prepare for. But it's a community thing. Hope you all will be involved more. All the slides from today are up on that link. All those the purple text is all links to further stuff. So if you like it, hit me up, find me later. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for coming to SaintCon.